Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of your favorite weekly sports podcast show. This is Sideline Banter. I'm your host, Cooper Pose. Joining with me, as always, my co-host, Weston Murphy, behind the camera. We got Spencer Steinke, and we are excited to bring you guys yet another episode of Sideline Banter. Already said the name, but let's get right into it. Hope you guys had a fantastic Memorial Day weekend. I know we did. Hope you guys got a little fun in the sun. An extra day off of work, can't complain. I know we had a good time. We played pickleball for about 5 hours on Monday. Got a nice tan line, nice sunburn. It was a good weekend.
Pickleball the whole weekend, baby.
Pickleball, yeah, the whole weekend. Friday and Monday. And Saturday?
Yeah, we played Saturday.
Friday, I played every day.
We pickleballed it up this weekend. We hope you guys actually, get a chance to play some pickleball.
It's next up.
It is next up. It's phenomenal. It's a great sport.
Might be pickleball banter. No time.
Honestly, it might be because I don't remember the last time I genuinely enjoyed playing a sport like pickleball in my life, honestly.
It is. The power you feel when you spike the ball in someone's face, it is invigorating. I'll give you that.
Oh, yeah. Definitely feels like a good power move. But before we get to that, don't forget to follow us at _Sideline Banter on Instagram and Twitter. Find us on YouTube at Sideline Banter. Hit that like, subscribe button. We hope you guys are enjoying our weekly episodes. We're near the nitty-gritty end of, sports for a while here. We got the finals coming up. First game is tonight, Thursday. Tomorrow, technically, when you guys are listening to it tonight, Thursday at 5:30 on ESPN. Nuggets versus Miami Heat. Miami closes it out in Game 7, winning by 30 against the Boston Celtics, a team who has a lot of questions going into this offseason, specifically on what to do with their two superstars who are going to be up for Supermax deals. More specifically, Jaylen Brown is up for his this year, due, I believe, $295 million. We will get to that when we get to the finals. We're going to do a little finals preview. Very excited, very nervous, I would say, because I know who I want to win. Clearly, as you see, I got my Jimmy Butler jersey on, my Miami jersey. Weston's actually rocking his Denver Cookies shirt as well. Kind of coincidental. We did not plan this at all.
Because I know who's going to win, and he wants the Heat.
Hey, we'll see. But yeah, wow, had a brain fart. Sorry there. But yeah, NBA Finals talk. We'll get to that tonight. But before we jump to that, get a little NFL news going. D-Hop is still free agent. A couple teams are bidding for him. I know specifically the Chiefs and Bills, which I don't think we are surprised about at all. Weston, which team do you think takes a bigger leap immediately if they get D-Hop between the Bills and Chiefs, considering that you would say that they are, other than the Bengals, the two superpower teams right now in the AFC?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting, the situation, how it played out with DeAndre Hopkins. We had him, be released from the Cardinals as far as terms go early last week. And today is the turnover for the new league year. So this was officially the last day that the Cardinals could have potentially gotten any trade value for him if any teams were competing. So it looks like, for whatever reason, the Cardinals did not pull the trigger with either one of these teams that are at the top as far as bidding war goes for DeAndre Hopkins. Weren't able to get any compensation for him, which is somewhat understandable. But now D-Hop is an official free agent and gets to choose wherever he wants to go, which is dangerous. He's the hottest commodity on the free agent market right now, bar none. And yeah, like Cooper said, we have the Chiefs and the Bills at the top of the pecking order, right now, as far as suspected places that he could go. And then we have, some guys in the background that are also making a little bit of noise, a little bit of push, as far as the Ravens and the Eagles. And let me tell you, if the Eagles get DeAndre Hopkins, you can sign, sealed, delivered. I'm going to be a big old sad guy, because that'd be
I'm right there with you. Browns are pushing for him too.
That'd be demoralizing. Yeah, the Browns are also in the race. I think that'd probably round out the top 5, I think, and then maybe the Cowboys in 6 if you want to put them there. But either way,
I feel like the Cowboys, in my opinion, are a dark horse team to land him, because Jerry would definitely throw money at him, I think, to sign him.
For sure. And I mean, there was a little bit of encouraging news. He was photographed outside of a gas station in Dallas 2 nights ago, absolutely blitzed out of his mind. His eyes were squinted as could be. Dude was definitely smoking that strong with somebody down in Dallas, but I don't know if that means much for us getting him to, suit up with the star on his helmet. But I think perspective-wise, we'll probably have to take into account that it's either going to be the Bills or the Chiefs. I know that for football fans that aren't fans of the Bills or the Chiefs, that's very demoralizing just because, like you mentioned, those are the two superpower teams, and whatever team he ends up going to out of those two, it's kind of like the rich get richer situation. And I think that seemingly is going to be the battle to see who can, push themselves over the hump in the preseason standings. I'm not necessarily sure right now. I think my favorite is with the Bills. Just because of the way that Hopkins is so glowingly referenced Josh Allen and his arm strength, his arm talent. And I mean, I think comparatively wise, Josh Allen's, potential as far as, passing the ball is much better than what we saw out of Kyler Murray. But with that said,
Calamari,
the arm strength, we haven't really seen Hopkins perform under those, situation or not situation, those standards as far as, having a big arm quarterback that's able to extend plays, because we didn't get to see him as much with Kyler Murray, but he still had a lot of really good success. But with that said, Hopkins was a different animal when he had Deshaun Watson under center and was able to get out of, the pocket and make pretty much anything happen in those days.
I'm right about.
Back in Houston, so that's like a silver lining as far as, him maybe not going to one of those two teams, is that he does have that prior connection with Hopkins, but with Watson and Hopkins, obviously, in Cleveland. But first off, you got to be excited, I think, as just a general football fan to see, one of the best wide receivers in the league potentially just get dropped into one of these offenses that is obviously overpowered to begin with. I think it would be really interesting to see how he kind of fits in with Stephon Diggs on the other side of him. Kind of makes them a matchup nightmare, to say the least, because you have two bona fide solidified, number one wide receivers on the same team. We know how that works. You can't roll double coverage to both of them. And I think most teams, game plan going into that Bills matchup is, we obviously can't let Josh Allen beat us on our feet, but we can't let Stephon Diggs eat. And that was one of the big, I think, focal points defensively that we saw last year. A lot of teams kind of replicate that they wanted to shut, Diggs down. And when they weren't able to shut Diggs down, the Bills team obviously flourished. And with that said, we saw Gabe Davis be a breakout star in that number 2 role. I could only imagine the things that Hopkins would be able to put on tape, being that number 1 or number 2 guy in Buffalo, or number 1 vice versa, and let Stephon Diggs eat. So to me, that's a really, really scary pairing. But I mean, when the way you look at it, a report came out today that Kadarius Toney looks light years above what he looked at the end of the season last year when the Chiefs acquired him, and that they are expecting him to be a solidified number 1 wide receiver and a full threat. Something of like we saw Tyreek Hill be in that Kansas City Chiefs offense. So at this point, sky's the limit for either team that is able to get him. I think in the AFC, it's we've talked about it plenty of times on the podcast already. The AFC is already loaded and scary enough, and these two teams obviously don't need any more help. But if he does go there, it's going to be exciting, especially if these teams run into each other in the AFC Championship. It's going to be electric. But I don't know. I don't really have a preference, I don't think, about what team he goes to, because obviously I'm not a fan. I'm not in the AFC. You could probably speak on what team you would rather not want him to go to.
I don't give a shit as long as he doesn't go to the Browns, personally.
Very fair. But yeah, with that said, I think we're going to see Hopkins probably make a decision here in the coming days, just because he probably needs to get acclimated into a new team setting rather quickly, rather than, I think feeling the repercussions of the situation being a complete and utter mess in, Arizona the last, couple months. I think it would be really beneficial for him to just turn over a new leaf as quickly as possible, get into the system, put his head down and work and show that he is that guy still. But I don't know, man. The whole situation with Hopkins has been really interesting to follow. And it's, for such a big free agent, it's been relatively quiet, for the most part, because I think at this point we've kind of come to terms that it's going to be one of these two teams at the top that gets him.
You haven't really heard much chatter about any other team really reaching out to him other than the Bills and Chiefs.
It almost seems like it's unattainable to offer more in that situation to a guy like Hopkins, because I think we can agree Hopkins is definitely one of those guys that has a bigger ego at the wide receiver position, definitely expects his targets. He wants to be that number one guy undisputedly. And I don't know, just seeing him in this position, I don't think he's going to give the time of day to a team that's, first off, not a contender. And like he said on, the I Am Athlete podcast, a team that's not ready to offer him a number one quarterback that's able to, fulfill all of his needs as a wide receiver that can perform.
Yeah.
So I don't know. With that said, I think expectation wise, that's where you can look for Hopkins to go is, best quarterback available and kind of move that down the list. But we'll see. Let's see him being a wide receiver that, still is going to guarantee you probably over 100 catches. He's going to demand a lot of money. So it's going to be, what team is willing to really cough up the money to get him on your squad.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with D-Hop because he keeps saying that he wants to play with a contending team, with a top quarterback. His top 5 quarterbacks specifically that he listed via I Am Athlete podcast. First answer was Josh Allen, and then it was Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson,
the Eagles,
and Justin Herbert. So obviously all those quarterbacks are phenomenal. You could say these are the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, placing Joe Burrow in there somewhere. Dak maybe, yes. I mean, if you want.
No, I would never put him in the top 5.
But back to what you were saying, it's interesting because obviously D-Hop is at a point in his career where he wants to play with a contender. He wants to play with a number one team. He wants to play with a phenomenal quarterback. But all these teams, all these quarterbacks that he's listing, I don't know specifically what their cap situation is, but I know the Chiefs don't have a phenomenal cap situation.
They're also master finessers.
They are also master finessers. I know the Eagles don't have a phenomenal cap situation. Chargers,
also master finessers, though.
Chargers, I think, have a good cap situation. They're going to have to offer Herbert a contract next year, but all these teams that he wants to go to are paying a lot of players right now, and it will be interesting to see what happens because if he wants to get paid, I think it's going to come down to a situation where he's either going to have to choose a team with a great quarterback that he wants to play with and maybe not getting paid as much, or wanting to get paid more and maybe going to another team that doesn't involve one of these top 5 guys. Because I feel like he could still go to any team that DeAndre Hopkins goes to. I feel like he obviously makes them
way better,
that much better.
Just perspectively, matchup wise, he's a nightmare.
I do think that there are a couple teams that he could go to that maybe aren't top contenders that he wants to go to, like the Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, I hate to say it, but like a Dallas Cowboys, for example, a team who has a top, in my opinion, top 10 quarterback in the league in Dak Prescott, a solid running game, a new offensive coordinator, which will be interesting to see this year, but Cowboys are a team that could offer him that kind of money, and with him on that team, they could take that leap to enter a team like New York Giants. They are a team that surprised a lot of people last year, and they're making a lot of noise already this offseason by getting Darren Waller, signing Daniel Jones. We've seen reports come out that Daniel Jones is still improving day in and day out.
Hopkins doesn't seem like he'd have good chemistry with.
I could see what you're saying for sure.
Especially given all the shitty quarterbacks he played with in Houston. It's very reminiscent of the way that Daniel Jones used to play, I would say.
I agree. I think it all just comes down to really what the money situation is going to look like.
But is he chasing the bag or is he chasing the bowl?
Well, I think he's chasing the bowl. I think
he's gotten a bag twice. I think he has 2. He's already gotten 2
deals.
Yeah,
he's gotten 2 deals, and he's getting paid already. The Cardinals are paying him this year. I think they're paying him like $18 million or something outrageous because of the cap hit.
Yeah.
Kind of the same situation that Pittsburgh dealt with AB when they ended up trading AB. They still had to eat a lot of that money as well. So I do think there's a couple teams that could come in maybe, at the midnight hour and surprise us and end up signing him.
That could be the Ravens, honestly.
The Ravens are definitely a team. I just don't know what their cap situation is like with Lamar, but if the only people that I think have deals right now on that team are Lamar and Roquan that I can at least think of. I know they just signed OBJ to a decent deal.
Dobbins is on a contract year.
So it really just all depends, I think, on what you said. If he's truly chasing the bull or if he's chasing the bag. Because it could be, and I'm not comparing Hopkins by any means to Juju Smith-Schuster. Could be like a Juju Smith-Schuster who he's kind of needed one more guy to get in that wide receiver rotation. Juju came and signed for a year, and look what happened. He ended up winning a Super Bowl.
And Chiefs need another guy in the rotation right now.
And then after Juju literally went and got paid for New England, he signed a 3-year, I think like $30 million deal with New England. So it could be a situation where D-Hop maybe has to bite the bullet and go sign with Buffalo or go sign with Kansas City for one, maybe 2 deals, something that, where he's still getting paid maybe like $8 to $10 million a year. I did see reports come out that said people are expecting his contract to be kind of similar to what Michael Thomas signed a couple years ago, where he's getting that $10 to $15 million range, which I feel like a lot of teams could probably, you've already said, master finessers could find a way to swing and could find a way to make that happen for him.
Kick the can down the road.
It will be interesting to see what happens with D-Hop. I'm excited. I'm fiending for some NFL news. Something that I actually wanted to talk with you guys about, which I think is interesting. Le'Veon Bell was a part of the, I believe, I don't remember his name. It's the Jersey Jerry guy from Barstool.
Mm-hmm.
He was on his show this week talking about his time with Pittsburgh, talking about he admits being petty somewhat in his contract dispute with Pittsburgh. But what I think is interesting, and I don't think this is a surprise to me, and I don't think it's a surprise to either of you or really anybody, but he admitted that he would smoke before games and still go out there and perform at such a high level. What is your first impression of that? Yeah, literally high level. What is your first impression?
Next level podcasting right there, baby.
What's your first impression of that, considering Le'Veon at this, pretty much his whole Steelers career was considered one of the best running backs in the league. He was putting up insane numbers. What is your first impression of that with Le'Veon, and does it make you think that, there could be more players out there who are doing things like this and still performing at such a high level? What it maybe might make the NFL think, maybe go down a path like the NBA where they take marijuana off the banned substance list?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I think it's not surprising to me, though. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, dude, that guy was always running so patient. He was definitely high behind that line.
And him and LeGarrette were teammates for 2 years together, too, and ended up getting busted together, so...
Yeah, honestly, the smoking doesn't really surprise me. I know a lot of players in the NFL, just the way the drug test works out, you get tested in the beginning of the year, and if you get lucky enough to pick that beginning of the year, you have pretty much 6 weeks until you have to worry about getting potentially called in again. So you do have a little bit of leeway depending on, when you get tested initially. And I know, for God's sake, there's a lot of guys in the NFL that have openly said they need to take a few 4 or 5 shots before the game to be able to get loose and loaded, ready to go. Whether that be, some tequila, some Hennessy. There's many players in the NFL that are drinking before the game. So it makes sense to me that there is players that are able to, maneuver around the smoking before the game, because I think the majority of players in the NFL are smoking for, or, ingesting any CBD, THC product for, the constant car collisions that they're in every week, and be able to recover their body somewhat, and kind of ease their mind as well, because it is very stressful being an NFL player as far as expectation wise go, being able to perform under pressure, pretty much being able to perform to feed your family, be able to, earn your check. So stuff like that doesn't necessarily surprise me, especially from an open smoker like Le'Veon Bell. I just think it's kind of controversial for him to put that in the air right now when he is trying to, maybe get back on the Steelers roster as the third running back. Maybe not the smartest thing to put out, but proves Le'Veon's, first off, a dog. But I just, from my perspective, being the most, formidable league in the world as far as the National Football League goes, I don't think that they would ever, at least right now, they're not going to, choose to take that route that the NBA goes and, eliminate smoking from the drug testing protocol. I think that the NBA was able to do that just because of the leniency that already lies within that, league. It's pretty much, for the most part, the NFL PA can't even throw stones at the NBA PA, just because the NBA PA has so many superstars on that panel. So they're able to, make decisions and kind of vouch for themselves, because when you come down to the board meeting and you have LeBron James, Chris Paul, and those type of guys telling you this is how we want it to be, and we're not going to play unless it is kind of this way. I think it was only a matter of time before we, kind of was no longer a focal point problem in the NBA. I think with that said, just all of the trouble that the NFL has already had with weed, you had Josh Gordon, you had, obviously multiple players. You had Pac-Man Jones, players like that were getting in trouble for this stuff years ago. Kind of the standard that the NFL took to stand on that you can't be doing these type of things to put our, league in jeopardy, because the weed was going hand in hand with, bad performance, or not necessarily bad performance, but I think off the field issues. Because, I mean, for God's sake, Josh Gordon was high before every game. He was sipping lean before a majority of games. This dude was taking pills, and he was still performing like one of the best receivers we had ever seen. So I think that the NBA is not negligent to the fact that this was going on. I would assume that they kind of understand it was more so about, tapering it off to some extent and not making it, present within the league. And I think that they're still kind of in that same position. It's from the perspective of, we're not going to, let our players run free and be able to do whatever they want, but they also, within closed doors, behind closed doors, are able to, construct themselves as men if they're able to take care of their business on and off the field and not get in trouble, put the league, name in jeopardy. So I think from that standpoint, they'll never get rid of a little bit of retaliation that goes with the smoking, because it does open doors for other problems, I think, down the line. But I definitely think it's interesting. It's kind of encouraging as well to see Le'Veon kind of go back on the dumb sort of antics that he definitely put up in those contract negotiations, which in turn led his career down a very, very bad hole. I think that he would be in a different position and probably still, toting the rock if he stayed with the Steelers. He would just probably be, I would assume, on a different team by now, just because he is a little bit older and has that wear and tear, and he would expect to still be.
Took a deep dive too at the same time after he left.
And he got Najee, so it's kind of different from that standpoint. But I think, all of the things that kind of reprimanded Le'Veon Bell from living up to his potential and actually getting paid and becoming, because he changed the game undisputedly. Like, he was the first running back to be able to get in the backfield and, he's going to give you 100 carries, and he's also going to catch 80 passes, which was unheard of before him. He really, opened the door for a lot of these prospects to be, scouted in different directions, because after him, every running back was expected to be able to catch passes and being able to flex out and, create mismatches on the edge. So Le'Veon did his thing in the league. It would have just been it would have been nice to see him, live up to his potential and flourish. Obviously got the short end of the stick at the Jets, took the money, and wasn't able to, ever get back on the horse and be the same guy, which is kind of expected in that Jets organization where they were at the time.
Hoping to turn the tide, though, this year.
Hey, Jets do look very promising, but who knows, man? I think it would be exciting. How do you feel if you got Le'Veon back as your third running back? I see a lot of people on, Steelers Twitter as far as calling him to be the third guy going into camp and just see what he got. Kick the tires on the guy.
Honestly, I feel like Le'Veon, I wouldn't hate it, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it did happen, because a lot of times, or there have been times where people have brought up AB to Mike Tomlin, because AB recently and a few times since the split has mentioned that Pittsburgh was his favorite place to play. He still loves Ben. He still loves Pittsburgh. Would be open to coming back.
Anybody's going to say that when they don't have a job.
No,
huh?
and I agree with you. And Mike Tomlin has been asked a couple times on that, one time specifically, and he straight up said it's not going to happen. They will not bring him back under any circumstance. That to me doesn't surprise me at all. The Le'Veon Bell situation, I wouldn't be shocked if they brought him back, and honestly, I would welcome it. Just because, Le'Veon really only left because of money disputes issues. There was never any bad blood between the two. He never badmouthed the team, at least as far as I'm aware. Never publicly went out and said anything bad about the city of Pittsburgh or about the franchise, Mike Tomlin, things of that nature. And considering that Pittsburgh has revamped their offensive line this year, Najee is actually the first Steelers running back since I believe Franco Harris to rush for 1,000 yards in their first two seasons back to back. So with that, Najee would be considered and still is considered kind of a question mark player with the franchise. I think he'll be with Pittsburgh for a while, but I don't think he's been the caliber player that the organization was expecting. Now, the offensive line, again, has been horrible. He did play with a injured foot last year, so he's going to get another chance this year. But considering the running back depth that Pittsburgh has had over the years, between the Willie Parker era to Rashard Mendenhall, both of them kind of fell real quickly, didn't have very long careers. And then we kind of played running back carousel for a while with Weldy Moore, Gary Russell, a lot of guys in and out, finally getting Le'Veon Bell, and then him producing at a high level. And then after he left, kind of did the same thing, didn't really have a running back for a while. James Conner did his thing for a little bit, but ultimately wasn't the guy that we wanted from day one. Or sorry, not from day one, the guy that we wanted long term. He had his moment with us, but James Conner now obviously on the Cardinals. I don't think it would be a bad thing to bring Le'Veon in because Najee is definitely the power back. Jaylen Warren is also very similar play style to Najee. He's going to hit the hole, going to run over really anyone. They're kind of trying to make Najee into Le'Veon where they throw him the ball out of the backfield, and I don't think it would be
Najee can't catch.
I don't think it would be, honestly, a bad idea just to bring Le'Veon in and see if you could have him come in as kind of like a gadget player. Like, have him run, obviously, halfback screens, have him run routes from out of the backfield. Hell, you could literally even line him up at receiver and have Najee or Jaylen Warren still in the game. So I personally wouldn't be opposed to it. Will it happen? I don't think so.
Yeah, my thought process here, I think on paper, it sounds great, but like you were saying, the expectations for Najee were a lot higher, and he may not have necessarily been living up to them so far. So bringing in a former running back for the team that was hyper, successful, and with Najee, quote unquote, being in this, make or break year type of situation with the Steelers, I think that bringing in Le'Veon would only serve as a detriment to his development, because at that point you have Najee pretty much looking behind his back like, do they just want Le'Veon? Like, yeah. And that at that point, I think that's kind of where you have to weigh your options, being the Steelers, because
I could see them bringing Le'Veon back in to kind of maybe like mentor Najee and be like, all right, well, I'm going to show you how to be a successful running back out of the backfield and how to catch passes and how to do certain things a certain way, running routes out of the backfield. Or if they line you up because they did line Najee up at the slot a lot last year, and Le'Veon could come in and say, all right, this is what I would do. This is how you do it. Kind of help him out in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, it does sound awesome, but it also, I don't know, the way I look at it, the Steelers wouldn't make this type of move unless they got full clearance from Najee, because
I agree, because Najee is kind of like he's, other than TJ and Minka, he's the face of their team right now.
Yeah,
at
100%.
least on the offense side of the ball.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I don't know, you got Pickens and Pickett and Pickens now, so
yeah, but in terms of like marketing and like who they use for most of the players who travel to other countries, things like that, Najee is a very popular player right now for the Steelers organization. So I honestly agree with you. I feel like if they did want to bring Le'Veon back in, Tomlin and the gang would probably go to Najee and be like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Like, what are your opinions on it?
Yeah, they would have to, because I think at that point, if they just brought, Le'Veon back without consoling Najee, in any situation where you have someone that directly competes for your job and was very successful in the past with that exact team, it would be a slap in the face, I think. And that's how, I don't know, I think that's how any competitor would kind of take it. Like, you don't think I can do my job, so you have to bring this guy back. So I think that would have to be something that was completely, okayed by Najee to some extent, because I think if you do bring him back without, jumping through the proper hoops, you could kind of fuck up everything you have going as far as camaraderie, team chemistry wise, especially given that Ben isn't there anymore, and that's who Le'Veon played his entire career with. But who knows? I mean, given that there is a new offensive coordinator that Le'Veon hasn't played under as well, I think that's definitely interesting.
I hope he's good.
So I don't know, because the Steelers could be seeing it from that perspective, but they could also be seeing it from the other perspective of Le'Veon made a shitty offensive coordinator good in the past in Fickner. So who's to say if we bring Le'Veon back, he wouldn't be able to, make this guy fucking look a little bit better as well. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a pipe dream, but it is interesting to see Le'Veon trying to get back in the league, and we'll see what happens if a team wants to take a shot on him. I mean, if injuries happen, I could see it, but That's also been kind of the case for the last couple of years. Le'Veon's been on the free agency market, and teams have picked him up, and he hasn't really done anything. So at this point, it looks like Steelers are bust for the future for him. But I don't know. I guess we'll see how that plays out kind of in Pittsburgh. But with that said, I mean, it shows there ain't a lot going on in the NFL right now. So we're having to talk about perspective situations and motherfuckers getting on podcasts and spewing their guts about how they want to get back in the league at this point. Is there anything else football-wise that we got going on right now that's a little bit interesting?
I mean, just the Jimmy G debacle going on.
Yeah, we could see Tom Brady, Jackie Moon this situation this year, but...
Yeah, I feel like they're probably still going to stick with Jimmy G. I don't think Jimmy G is going to fumble that bag, unfortunately. If you don't know, Jimmy G has an injury clause in his contract with the Raiders. He failed his first physical with the team, so now the team basically can do whatever they want with Jimmy G, especially if he fails his physical going into training camp. They can cut him and won't have to pay him the multi-million-dollar deal that they signed him to. So just another shit show for the Raiders. They already, can't fire Josh McDaniels because they don't have the cash to pay somebody else. So, I mean, Budda Baker saying he'll rejoin the Cardinals when it's time. More Cardinals, just drama. What the hell is going on in that organization? Have no idea. They're a complete rebuild, I think, this year. Rumors that they might trade Isaiah Simmons to Pittsburgh, which I would totally be all for.
I'd like him too. I think any team would take him right.
Yeah, I think any team would take him right now. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready to move. I mean, Brock Purdy's progressing. He's threw for the first time this week, which could mean he might play week 1 against Pittsburgh.
Brock Purdy revenge game, baby. He's coming out firing.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, let's go ahead and get right to it. We got the NBA Finals starting this week. They will be first game, as I said at the beginning of the show, June 1st, Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on ABC.
Nuggets versus Heat. Sounds like my air fryer, LOL. Get it?
I get it. That was great. I paused because I'm assuming the audience is going to laugh with you when you say that.
Cue laughter.
But yes, Miami traveling to Denver for the game 1. Denver right now is favored by 9. The spread is, 9. Money line, Denver's favored minus 400. Right now, Miami is plus 310. ESPN has Denver with a 78.2% chance to win game 1.
89% chance to win the series. Denver is minus 380 for the series. Heat are plus 300 if you think they're going to come out.
Tyler Hero is expected or is trending to play in game 3. So that will be very huge for Miami, depending on what kind of situation they are in at that point. Honestly, I'm pretty excited for this finals. I think because it is Denver, Miami, we're finally getting... The past couple of years have shown, other than obviously the Warriors last year winning, that the NBA is finally coming back to somewhat balance.
Yeah,
but we're not seeing the same teams in the finals every single year. We're not
these super teams that
are. Yeah, we're not seeing super teams. We're not seeing LeBron against the Warriors every single year. Super teams, like you said already, where we had Toronto with Kawhi and Kyle Lowry in that roster a couple years ago, who actually beat the Warriors. Obviously,
it's refreshing to not have the Warriors involved.
It is refreshing, and I think that's why this is probably the first time in a while that I've been really, really interested in the NBA, because the playoffs this year were so up in the air, and I'm very excited for this matchup. We have the 44-38. Yes, 44-38 record Miami Heat team in the finals.
Only second 8 seed ever to make it to the
first play-in team as well. It's actually crazy to think about it, too. They had to win 2 play-in games to get in the playoffs. They lost their first play-in game. Then they were down against Chicago in the fourth quarter, and their second play-in game came back and won, obviously.
They went on a magical run.
But yeah, this is quite a magical run for them. Weston, what do you think of this finals matchup? Obviously, I think you've made it known that you are going with Denver to win this. What are your first impressions with this? What do you think Miami needs to do to maybe pull out the win? What do you think Denver needs to do to be the team that you think is going to win?
I'll start with Miami just because I don't necessarily have a lot of faith in them. I think that Tyler Hero needs to nut up and go ahead and get in as soon as possible. I know projection is game 3, but it's the NBA Finals, buddy. You might not ever make it back in your entire career, so you might as well just do what you can, take the cortisone shot, take the pills before the game. Whatever need be.
And he hasn't played since the very first playoff game. He's only played 1 game with Miami.
Hey, and we saw him make a 3-pointer with that broken hand, buddy. So go ahead and take some practice shots and maybe get in for your team. Because I think that they are definitely needing a second scorer to be able to go to in those clutch situations.
Especially against his Denver team.
100%. We saw Gabe Vincent really be able to step up, but the Heat very well almost ran out of firepower, and we're almost the first team to ever get, take the L against a 3-0 lead. The Celtics just barely, weren't able to get it done in the last game at home. We obviously saw Jason Tatum, get injured on the first series. So a lot of people are saying the Heat got lucky. They got copped out, especially with the way that Jimmy Butler finished the series off. Very, very suspect down the line, especially for a player that prides himself on being clutch, that X factor that's able to carry your team. He did not finish the game down the stretch when it came close. We obviously saw Derek White, be the player that saved Game 6, and Jimmy was able to put those free throws in. That was a miraculous end. But with that said, it was a glaring issue that the Heat didn't have another option to go down in the stretch to, be able to generate any offense. And I think a lot of the, eyes right now, yes, they're on Jimmy, and we're expecting Jimmy to, do Jimmy Butler things in the finals. But with that said, Bam Adebayo cannot play the way that he has played in damn near the entire playoffs, but especially in the last series. If he thinks shit is going to be sweet against this, Denver Nuggets team with Jokic rolling hot, especially off of good rest, I think he's going to have another thing coming, and that could be where, you hate to say it, but that's where the Denver Nuggets are looking right now to exploit the Miami Heat on, epic proportions, because Bam hasn't been able to get it done on either side of the floor lately. And we know Jokic is going to get his. So if Bam is not able to show up, he's going to get his and then some. And we know what happens if, you let Jokic get going. He's going to be able to make everybody else on the team eat. And I think that's not what you want to see, especially given that Denver has a significant advantage as far as depth and size. I don't know. I just don't think the matchup is very favorable for Miami, especially when your three-point shooters right now are Strus and, Duncan Robinson, who have not been showing up, especially down the stretch when you need them in big moments. And the Denver Nuggets have guys conversely in, Aaron Gordon and MJ or MPJ that have been showing up down the stretch. You got Bruce Brown off the bench who's, playing like a starter. That's the glaring issue that scares me, because equivalency wise, I'm comparing Bruce Brown to Gabe Vincent, but Vincent's in the, starting lineup and having to, no matter what, put up 20 to 25 if this team wants to have a chance, and if Bam is playing like the way he has been. And it's just so much more stress-free when you look at the Denver Nuggets, strategy, because you have Bruce Brown, who is damn near the same player coming off the bench and able to solidify, offense and defense out of that second unit. So I don't know. I don't really think that the Heat have a lot of good chance unless they are able to, for, whatever reason, lean on their coaching and Spoelstra, who's been there before, and lean on, front office wise, Pat Riley, who's obviously been to, the finals many a times as a player, coach, and GM. These are the type of pillars that you have to lean on, especially when you have a team that is deeper than you and has, the best weapon in the NBA.
Agree.
But I just think there's only so much that he can do, and given the fact that these series are 7 games, they might sneak 1 or 2, but I don't think that they're going to be able to assert their dominance to the force that takes care of the series and wins them an NBA title.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you to a point where Miami definitely is going to have to scratch and claw their way to win this NBA title.
I think to win a game in general.
We have talked about this Denver Nuggets team a lot in regards to their ability to score at will. Anybody
especially in the half court.
Anybody in that Denver starting 5, really anybody on the Denver bench in general is able to knock down 15 to 20 points at any moment, really, in reality, for this Denver team. That's the biggest thing that I'm worried about with Miami. But I think Miami, the fact that they have Eric Spoelstra, who's been here before, they've now been here 7 times. This is Spo's, I think, 5th final appearance, maybe 6th finals appearance.
6 in the last, what was it, since 2006?
Well, so they had that appearance in 2006, but it's been since 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, he did 4 with Miami, and then he had the bubble. So this will be his 6th. I think the fact that he has that finals experience, he clearly was fired up after that Game 6 loss. In the presser, he said that the team was going to get it done. They went out there and they beat Boston by 30 points.
Which means a lot.
I think that he is going to be, I don't want to say he's the deciding factor, but I think he's the most important piece for Miami's success. Obviously, you can say that because he is the coach, but the fact that he has experience in this atmosphere and this team, like I said, this Miami team has not had the easiest path to get here. They're battle tested. They're ready to go. They can play, I feel like, against anybody. They beat the number 1 seed to move on. They beat a really good New York Knicks team, one of their biggest rivals. And then they wasted a 3-0 lead in the conference finals, but they still beat a really well-rounded, good Celtics team with 2 players who are being considered for Supermax deals right now. So I think Miami is battle tested and ready for this. I think that they have a real opportunity, a real chance to win this finals. Their biggest key to me is just going to be when Jokic or Murray is having an off night, how they're going to be able to play the other. And when I say that, I mean, if Jokic has the ability to potentially triple-double every single game. We already know that. Jokic is going to be the vocal point, I think, defensively for Miami. It's going to be, what are they going to do for the other players? How are they going to scheme around Murray? How are they going to scheme around Porter? What are they going to do to really make a difference and put a stop to this Nuggets high-scoring offense? Now, obviously, I don't think they're going to be able to do that every single night. This is the NBA. Players get really, really hot. Players get cold. I think they're going to really have to, as a team collectively, if there is nights where Jokic or Murray or somebody is cold on that Nuggets team, there's going to have to be somebody that needs to step up on that Miami team. I think Butler cleaned up his act in Game 7 finally, 28 points, 12 for 28 shooting, 3 for 7 from the 3. I think Butler is going to show up when it matters. Obviously, you said Bam needs to show up, which I agree as well, but I think the deciding factor in this, and I think he's going to continue to roll, I think it's going to be Caleb Martin. If Caleb Martin can continue to play the way that he has played the whole entire...
He can step up and be that second scorer.
Yeah, if he can step up and be that second scorer with him, and if Hero comes back for Game 3, I do think...
Makes a big difference.
It is going to make a big difference.
They got to steal one game in Game 1 or 2.
The most important thing is they have to win at least one of the 2 games. And I feel like that's the very easy thing to say, but we've seen a lot, I feel like, in recent years with the NBA where teams go up 2-0 and then once they go back to the other team's home court, it's a completely different series. Like Phoenix did it with Denver. They went, they were down 2-0 and then won the next 2 games. The series was tied 2-2. I think in the finals, with how good Denver is, obviously seeing what they did with the Lakers, where every single game with the Lakers was very close. They were up 1-0, 2-0, swept them, obviously. I think we've seen that Denver is already capable of being able to play in those crunch time, high-intensity games where, it looks like a team's going to steal a win in Denver, or the Lakers are finally going to get a win against Denver and, get the series projected moving up for them, and Denver still finds a way to close it out. Miami's most important thing is going to be winning one of the first 2 games of the series. I think if they don't do that, I think they can still win a game in Miami, but it's going to be hard to take
the series at that point.
It's going to be very hard. Miami, though, I think can get it done because they went into the Garden in Boston, and they won. I mean, they won the first 2 games in Boston, and I think that's huge considering what kind of atmosphere Boston's like. Very hostile. Not a lot of players have already been vocal about saying they don't like playing there. So the fact that Miami went and they won 2 games in Boston, Miami kind of has that like attitude era type of thing going for them right now, where they know they're the underdog. They know nobody thinks that they can beat all these teams beating. I think that's really going to put a chip on their shoulder, and I think that's what's going to help them. I don't want to say win the finals completely yet, but I think that's what's going to help them be a huge X factor for this finals coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to touch on one of the points that you referenced is that, it is the NBA and players can get really hot and really cold. And I think that's one of the X factors to look at in this game is that the Nuggets have been sitting on the couch for almost a week and a half now. And obviously the Heat are coming off one of the most electric, Eastern Conference Finals that we've seen in some time. Obviously had to battle back from the potential of, history being made against them.
Still crazy. I don't mean to cut you off, just for perspective. This time last week, Boston had won their first game. It was 3-1. We
gave no hope.
We were still saying just a week ago today that Miami was gonna close it out. Like, it was over. Like, it didn't matter. Boston got their win. That's all that mattered.
No, yeah, I 100%. We literally gave the Celtics no hope at last week's pod, which is to some of our detriment. But the Heat ended up closing it out. But yeah, that was kind of what I was getting at as far as who is going to be able to reap the benefits of their current situation? Are the Heat going to be able to fuel themselves on, kind of, you already touched on it, winning in the bubble, being that team who has continuously had to play and step up, off of, minimal rest and, been expected to just tie their bootstraps up and go get a win when it really comes down to it. And then conversely, you have the Nuggets who are sitting at home, as comfortable as can be, watching every game, I'm sure, of this Celtics Heat series, trying to dissect everything they can. Who is going to be at a bigger advantage from that? Are the Nuggets going to come out and be at a disadvantage from being at home and, not really being
9 days rest,
not being in the mix, not being in the situation where, you're feeling conclusive pressure on your back to be able to go out and get a win? And now you kind of, no sweat off of their backs, but every player has kind of been given the opportunity to take a deep breath, be able to relax and kind of probably push playoff basketball to a side for a little bit, being able to recover mentally, physically, what have you. With that said, the Miami Heat are still in it. They're in the thick of things. They haven't, I don't think relinquished any type of pressure that's on them to be able to perform in the finals. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think it's going to come down to it is, and with that said, I think that the way that we, kind of forecast the series going and the Heat having to get a win in game 1 or 2, it serves to their advantage that they're able to, maybe come off of no rest and be able to serve the momentum of what happened in that game 7 and be able to build on it, because they might be able to just catch Denver slipping at home in one of these 2 games. And I think that's exactly what they need to be able to build foundation to be able to make an actual push at it. So I think it could be, a little bit to Denver's detriment that they are rested as much as they are. But I look at this team as being so efficient and so mature offensively and defensively, and being well coached with Mike Malone at the helm, that I don't necessarily think that this is a team that would take lightly, especially how they were behaving after, clearly had a chip on their shoulder as well, and behaving after kind of how they're treated in the media. They want their respect as well.
Yeah, they were not happy with how they were being talked about.
They clearly want their respect as well, but both of these teams have chips on their shoulders. So I think that's the X factor to look into, is if the Nuggets come out sluggish and aren't able to, pull a game together, clearly look like they just took too much time off and aren't able to look like the same Nuggets team out the gate, that could serve to Miami's benefit coming off that, game 7 clinch. And the Heat have the momentum on their side right now, so they need to capitalize on it.
I agree. That is huge that they've been playing. They literally just played a game on Monday.
Right.
They just played a game 3 days ago. So 2 days ago. So they're still, and that's a great point. They're still in that. This is just another series to them. You know what I mean? They got a playoff win. Now they're moving on. Denver, as you already said, they've been sitting at home, and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot too, because you would imagine that they've been getting prepared no matter who they were going to play. They probably have been obviously practicing, doing some scheming to a point. I don't know how it works in the NBA, but I would think that they maybe were preparing for Miami in some way, knowing that the series looked like it was going to be over.
You would have to assume.
You would have to assume a little bit. The coaches, I think, were obviously handling that. They were doing the scouting. The players were just, I think the biggest thing that Denver could have possibly been doing right now is just keeping their players warm, because you would hate to see them come out tomorrow night, them look flat, them look like they haven't played basketball in 10 days,
Yeah, but resting your thoroughbred who averages a triple-double in the playoffs, also, you can't hang your hat on that.
You can't hang your hat on that at all.
That's a very big advantage.
Because for me, I feel like it almost, in a way, benefits Miami still, because now both teams, again, unless Denver was quietly scheming both teams, scouting both teams, Denver and Miami now both have the same amount of time
to prepare,
in a short amount of time to prepare for this matchup, which I think benefits Miami greatly, even though they wasted a 3-0 lead. So this playoff series, I think, it's interesting. Or this final series is very interesting.
There's a lot of factors.
It seems like Denver obviously is the heavy favorite, but the way that Miami has been playing this postseason, you still just can't. There's something about them that makes you think, but they really could go out there and win.
Yeah.
Nobody expected either of them to be here. Or sorry, not either of them. Nobody expected Miami to be here at all. Nobody. I was thinking Lakers, Miami for a second in my head because beginning of the show we were talking. It probably would have been one of the first finals, if not the first, if 7th seed and an 8th seed made it to the finals. But nobody expected Miami to be here. And like I said already, I think that they're using that to their advantage. And I feel like that takes a little bit of pressure off them because they've been to the finals before in the bubble, and now they're back. Jimmy Butler said last year when they lost to Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals that they were going to be back in this situation and they were going to win. They did it. So very, very interesting. I'm very excited. I honestly cannot wait to watch the game tomorrow. I think it's going to be a very exciting series. I know a lot of people on Twitter were hating because it's Denver versus Miami, but I think we're going to get a great matchup from these two teams. I don't know what more you can ask for. It's been a phenomenal NBA season. The postseason was super exciting. We got a resurgence from the Sacramento Kings. Finally saw Golden State be a little mortal for a little bit. Lakers made a great push. Denver's really beginning to show that they are...
They're them in the West.
Potentially, yes, they are them in the West. Yeah, I mean, the East is still kind of, the East is the East to me. Milwaukee, Miami obviously making a big push. The Knicks are kind of on their way back up, finally advancing to the next round of the playoffs. Very exciting NBA playoffs, and I'm excited for the finals. Very sad that we are at the finals because, like I said at the beginning of the show, once the finals are over, we're kind of...
Hey, 99 days till football, folks.
We're kind of out of it. But, yeah, I mean, if I'm ready to make my pick, if you're ready to make your pick, you want to do game by game, you want to pick who we think is going to win the series.
I think game by game is a little bit hard to, judge from the outgoing just because we don't know situationally. I think picking game by game ultimately determines how the last one ended. And it's all about momentum. And I think right now it's too hard to gauge the momentum off of a team coming off of 9 days of rest and conversely a team that is going to be coming off of 3 days rest who just closed out probably one of the biggest nail biters that any of them have ever played.
I'd probably say neither of these have as much as did. Denver coming off that series, and then with Miami fumbling to take the sweep and then give up 3 games. I think they kind of ran out of that momentum too. So
here's what I'm curious about: who do you guys think Denver wanted to play? Think they're happy they're playing Miami?
I would think so.
Do you think that they probably think that they have a better chance of beating Miami?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I would agree.
Yeah, just because just matchup wise, they don't match up as good against Brown and Tatum that they do against the
Butler.
Heat.
Really, and
not only that, but with Miami missing Hero right now, that's just one less player to worry about. That can give the Heat that scoring potential.
100%. Yeah, I think we can just pick our winners and maybe game spread. Who's going to win how many and what? I got Denver winning 4-1. I think the Heat probably get 1, and I'm just going to go with, the chip on their shoulder and, hang my hat on the fact that they might be able to ride the momentum and all of those X factors that we, put in the air as far as coaching and playoff experience. But with that said, I just really see Denver as a juggernaut right now with everybody clicking full cylinders. And I just, like I said, I don't necessarily see this team that's going to take 9 days of rest and not be able to use it to their advantage because of how mature and efficient they are offensively and defensively. So I think that the Heat maybe surprise them, steal 1 game, but I think this will be a 4-1 series. Denver.
Spence?
Yeah, well, I think Denver's gonna take it in 6.
Okay.
I want to think that Jimmy Butler, off of what he said from last year, they're gonna be back. He's gonna be playing to that. Keeping that in mind. But just
so much pressure, bro.
Yeah,
it's like a force.
Yeah, and the Heat have been there so many times. Like I want to think that they take 2 games, but
you guys don't think Denver has any pressure right now?
I honestly don't. I think it just depends based off the momentum. Like I said earlier, I think Jokic and Murray, no doubt, they're going to be able to play and keep up their level of play that they have been the whole postseason.
If Denver's role players can step up to the lights.
Exactly. I'm just curious as if KCP is going to keep playing to the level he has been at.
Porter Jr.
Yeah. I just don't think Miami, though, will be able to keep that level of play that they did. I mean, they lost it from the first half of the series with the Celtics. Losing that and seeing how Butler kind of disappeared, the wanted posters all over social media. I just don't know if Miami is going to be able to really keep up with them.
So quick.
But I could see them taking 1 or 2. I just definitely think it's going to be Nuggets and City.
Yeah, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, saying that they're going to at least get 1. But yeah, man, the Nuggets just look like
they really need
task.
all hands in, though. I mean, Tyler Hero needs to be there.
I agree.
There's just so many things that Denver team can do.
Mm-hmm.
I think defensively, their focal point has to be on the other guys. Jokic is going to get his either way.
Yep.
It's got to be shutting down all the rest of the team, and I just don't know if that Miami team is going to be able to keep up with that. They couldn't do it with Derek White or a lot of those other guys on the Celtics.
And to your point, I mean, we saw Aaron Gordon play really good defense against KD and LeBron in back-to-back series. And for God's sakes, if he plays the same defense against Jimmy Butler, they're fucked.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now, is that, like you said, the Heat really need another scoring threat to be able to, I think, put the Nuggets on their heels.
Yeah.
And if Aaron Gordon comes out and has a series, bro, it could be easy a sweep.
Yeah, it's just going to take much more out of Miami than it will for Denver.
And there's a lot of expectations on Butler right now. You don't want him to force. I mean, I know he doesn't really seem like that type of player that, reads too much into the media and lets that type of stuff affect him. But with that said, he was a little bit suspect for a little bit of that Boston series after, throwing up that, 50-point performance and what have you. So understanding that it is the finals and all the claims that Butler made prior last year, that's just the last thing you want to see, is him come out and act like he's the only scoring threat, and him take 20 to 25 shots and only put up 20 points, God forbid, and this team loses by 30.
Yeah.
I really want to say Miami.
You want to say Miami?
I really want to say Miami in 6. I'm going to say Miami in 7. I'm going to give respect to Denver. While I think Denver has more firepower,
pick him with his heart.
Well, I think Denver has more firepower. I truly, truly think that this Miami team has no pressure on them right now. 7 undrafted players, a head coach who's been there before, knows what he's doing, clearly is able to motivate his players to win when it matters. I think Miami is going to be able to do enough to trade back and forth with Denver to keep them in the series. I think the way that the playoffs have been going this year, I think we're going to see a long final series. This has been a very long
7
playoffs.
games would surpass expectations. That would make it a great finals.
7 games would make it a great finals, and I think this Miami team, this Jimmy Butler-led Miami team, they've been knocking on the door for a couple years.
He's a believer.
This Denver team is very, very good. Don't get me wrong, but I think this Miami team is going to want it more. And I know that sounds so cliche, so corny, but I really think
who wants it more?
That they have a chip on their shoulder. Half their roster is guys who were not wanted. Strus was literally cut by Boston last year. Caleb Martin was cut. Caleb Martin's only on the team because J. Cole.
I like Caleb Martin's story a lot.
J. Cole, literally, Martin's only on the team because J. Cole made a call to Miami and said, "You guys need to sign this player. You need to sign him. He's good. Sign him." He's on the team because of a rapper, not even because of
Cole World,
not even because of his agent or because of performance. Because literally somebody else believed in him. This Miami team, I think, has such a chip on their shoulder.
J. Cole's a hooper, bro.
He's a hooper for sure. He is a hooper for sure.
Dude hasn't rapped on a track in like 4 years.
But I really, honestly, I know it sounds so cliche and corny, but I think this Miami team's just going to want him more. Denver is set up right now for success, for long term. And I think this Miami team right now, to me, just seems like a team of, I don't want to say a team of destiny, but they just seem like a team who I don't know. I guess
they're selling their story.
I guess I'm gonna have to say Team of Destiny. I just feel like there's such a story behind them with Spo getting back to the finals. Jimmy Butler's story. Is he Michael Jordan's son? The whole thing going on with just his story in general, him trying to get back to the finals. The last time he was in the finals, he's single-handedly carrying Miami through that whole series. And Miami, I feel like, played a better Lakers team. Maybe not a better Lakers, definitely not a better Lakers team than this Nuggets team, but I feel like this Miami team is better than that Miami team in the final. So I think Miami's going to trade games with them. I think it's going to go to 7.
Well, I'm also curious to see like how the narrative with the Heat and Nuggets rivalry with that whole Jokic running into Morris.
I feel like that's.
I don't know. I feel like after you brought that up, that kind of reminded me about it, and they really were waiting outside of the Nuggets locker room. Like they don't like them. I wonder if that comes into effect. Like, yeah, you play your best ball against like your rivals.
It adds fuel to Miami's fire for sure.
For sure. I hope it motivates them more.
I necessarily need more motivation, internal motivation.
Yeah, I want to see them get that fire going and really give Denver a run for their money.
I think with that said, this is a team that we look at who has had a chip on their shoulder, who has been doubted the whole year. They're going to need to play with that fire and intensity.
And I think that's what they're going to do.
Like they have something to prove.
They have to keep their performance up. Fourth quarter is going to be so important.
Yeah.
I mean, they fumbled that a couple times.
Look, they blew
Denver,
out
the Nuggets are killers.
Yeah,
in the fourth
blew
quarter.
out Boston on multiple occasions, and you can look at that Boston roster and the Nuggets roster and say they're identical in terms of players who can score at will, players who can go off at any night, defensive skill. Like their rosters are very similar. I think even if we saw Boston versus Denver, I would still probably say a 7-game series because both those teams are so evenly matched in my opinion. The fact that they were able to go out and do that against Boston, I understand there was some coaching concern with Boston, but at the end of the day, it's the NBA. The players are on the court. I really feel like Miami has a phenomenal chance to win this finals against Denver. Just strictly based off of how they were able to not only beat down Boston, but when adversity came and hit, they were still able to go and finish the series when it mattered most.
Hey, take it with a grain of salt. This guy watched the Ted Lasso finale yesterday. He believes in believe right now.
I believe and believe. Yeah, we got to talk about that for a sec, huh?
Hey, we can get to it at the end.
Not a Ted Lasso.
I mean,
what a fucking great show.
Pretty much ran through the finals. If there's anything else that you guys want to talk about, I mean, it is what it is. We can't really speak much on it until we see these boys in action, huh?
Yeah, I feel like once we've seen...
We'll at least take a couple. Not sure.
I'm
not too confident Miami
get swept or go out with only one.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think Miami wins tomorrow.
Okay.
You like Malone?
Huh?
Yeah, we like Malone.
Got my long dick in your ass.
Whoa! Wow!
Got him.
That's a good one. I'll give it to you.
Wow!
Damn. That one would have been sick if it was the Lakers that made it instead of the Nuggets.
Whoa!
There it is.
Yeah, because there wouldn't have been a joke.
Yeah, bounce back.
Lakers were the joke.
Oh, Coop. Don't act like that. Don't act like that.
I know. I was rooting for the Lakers. I just want to get in on the fun,
Damn, Malone dick in your mouth. That's pretty crazy.
But yeah. I mean, that's our finals predictions. I got Miami. They got Denver.
Let us know who you got in the comments.
Yeah, let us know who you guys got next. I like that the games are so spaced out because next week I think it'll only be 3 games in, so it won't be like the series will be over because it's 2 games. It's 2 days between each game. Like game 1's tomorrow, and then game 2's not even until Sunday.
Yep.
So that'll be nice. We'll have a real idea.
Yeah, we'll be able to recap game 3. Game 3 will be on when we're recording next week.
We'll have a real idea of who we actually think is gonna pull it out.
Hey, and if it's 2-0 Nuggets at that point, you guys are going to be...
I'm still riding Miami. Pause.
Okay.
But yeah. Thanks, guys, for tuning in for our finals preview. Before we sign off, we got to talk about Ted Lasso. Fucking show, man. They fumbled the bag a little bit third season. Third season wasn't... It was still good, but...
The filler episodes, the Emmy production, it was definitely a little bit sad, but... Boy, that season finale lived up to the hype. They tied all the ends together, I think, seamlessly. Left a little bit of
I saw a lot of complaints.
Bit to be desired at the end. I saw a lot of people like it.
I saw some complaints. People saying that they left a lot of stuff open, which I disagreed with. I think people were playing too much into like Rebecca's story about...
Rebecca and Ted is trending on Twitter right now, so Rebecca, a lot of people are upset about that.
Well, some people are saying they're mad how she finally met the love of her life, the pilot guy, and they showed them at the end of the show, all meeting together to eat, and, they were clearly together, and people were like, oh, why didn't we get to see, them get to that point, blah, blah, and I'm like,
That's not what the show is.
I'm saying that's not what the show is, man. That's not what the show is. People are saying like they will be raged if Jason Sudeikis wins an Emmy for this. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins an Emmy because it was still a phenomenal show.
Yeah, I mean, the show is Ted Lasso. The show is Jason Sudeikis. It is Ted, which, like, with all the further development as far as, like, making Roy the coach, you know, him being still there with Beard and Nate, it made it seem like the show could go on, you know, type of thing. But, like, without Ted, there is no show.
I really, for a split second, and it's too late to say now, but spoilers if you're still watching, I really, for a split second, thought that when they were on the plane, and she was like, "Do you want to go to the hospital with your friend?" He answered so quick, barely gave you any time to even think about it. I, for a split second, was like, "Oh, here we go. This is where he gets off the plane and stays." Too. Like when Rebecca was like, "Oh, she can move here, and your son can go to school here, and your wife can be a teacher," blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh my God.
It sounds like a sweet deal.
It sounds like a phenomenal deal. And I like what you said. I think it was before we recorded how they were making it seem like Becca was maybe going to buy an NFL team. That would have been...
Yeah, because she made it seem like she was going to go to the U.S. with Ted, and that would have been a crazy spinoff, just Ted Lasso USA, and they go buy the Chiefs. She buys the Chiefs.
I feel like there's going to be spinoffs for sure.
There might be. I like the idea of maybe a movie.
A movie would be dope. Like kind of like what they did with Entourage. Like a few years down the road, they do kind of like a reunion movie type of thing, where just you kind of give a little check-in on our favorite characters.
100%. Because I mean, I think. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, go give it a shot. It's in my top 5 shows of all time, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's got to be probably... It might be the number 1 feel-good show I've ever watched, honestly.
Season 1 and 2, for me, personally, I would say it's probably best feel-good show I've ever seen. Definitely top 3 show I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's too good. It's too good. It literally makes you feel... It makes you feel like just
gives you hope. Yourself. It gives you hope, honestly. It gives you hope that there's good in the world. I
literally use the memory of a goldfish thing like in my everyday life now.
Hey, you got to. You gotta have the memory of a goldfish. But yeah, I don't know. I think the thing that makes people so mad is there is so much potential in the show. Obviously, just the characters were so great, and it feels like they were cut short.
Whoever loves the ending of a show?
Yeah, it's just
whoever loves the ending of anything.
Nobody. And that's the thing. All good things must come to an end. And I think for what they had and what they had expectation wise, the series finale was really good. It led up to the hype, but like Coop said, I think that some of the prior, antics they went with writer-wise in early on in the season was a little bit of question, but I think that in turn, I know that the director said that they always had envisioned the show only going 3 seasons, so I think that they kind of had this plan ultimately, and maybe what we felt was a filler episode in the show, or was a political grab in the show because they had a few of them.
Had a few of them this year.
It was definitely a build up to the finale that they kind of had generating the whole time. Mm-hmm. So at that point, it was almost like, yeah, we got to just sputter our feet until we get there because we know we're going to be able to deliver on that.
The show was so huge, too. They probably used that as an opportunity to really, spread some awareness a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I either way, you have to love the way that you saw the show grow from season 1 to season 3. Obviously get the Nike partnership with the uniform. They disband from Warner Brothers. It gets signed.
They would sell some of that stuff
to Apple, and it's the show blew up worldwide. I could only imagine how popular it is internationally. With that said, you hate to see all good things come to an end, and you would love. There's just so many perspective ways that the show could go and continue, but I think with a show like that is just so long-standing and kind of hit people the way it hit both of us, it's almost better to lay it to rest and not try to force anything additionally, because I think that's a lot of time when you see shows get ruined and kind of suck.
For sure. Like Game of Thrones.
Hey, that's a hot opinion. I can't give my opinion on it, but I don't know. Ted Lasso, thank you for your service, brother. Salute.
Yeah, thank you, Jason Sudeikis. Thank you, cast of Ted Lasso.
Great show.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Sideline Banter. We hope we hit you guys as hard as Ted Lasso hit us. We hope you guys enjoy a phenomenal game 1.
Should have some fight talks next week. Maybe the llama might be back.
We're hoping the llama will be back. I'll be getting off a plane from New Jersey, so we'll have to record right when I get off.
Oh, no.
And a 6, so we'll be good.
Might have a few drinks on the plane, show up a little buzzed, huh?
Hey, we'll see. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, don't forget to follow us at _Sideline Banter on Instagram and Twitter. Find us on YouTube at Sideline Banter. Hit that like, subscribe button. Listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon. Find us anywhere you want. Thank you guys again for tuning in. My name is Cooper Pose. Joining me, as always, Weston Murphy behind the camera. We got Big Spencer Steinke. We appreciate you guys.
Nuggets in 5.
8, 7. Hope you guys have a good weekend and enjoy the NBA Finals.